welcome to each one of you. I want to express my gratitude for your presence here today. I extend a warm welcome to our distinguished guest, the Honorable Speaker, Ms. Radhika Moral, a distinguished doctoral scholar at Brown University in Rhode Island, USA, along with our esteemed faculty members and my fellow peers. My name is Nidhi Shamshukha, and it brings me immense joy to be your host for today's event. It is indeed an honor to have Ms. Moral among us today. Her seasonality, agrarian transformation, and ecological shifts. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Dharmeshwar Barohi, Assistant Professor and Coordinator, Department of Geology, to deliver the welcome address.
Department of Geology and from various disciplines. Dear students from various disciplines and the research scholars of Royal Global University. I welcome all of you to this interactive session, and today's session will be valuable for the research scholars and the students, especially for the end semester students who are working in their dissertations and the research projects. Because today we have amongst us Ms. Radhika Morel, who is a doctoral scholar at the Department of Anthropology, Brown University, USA. She will be talking about the living on silk plantation, the seasonality, agrarian transportation, and ecological shift in Northeast India. After doing research, we'll have the data, but what to do with this data? This is a problem for the beginners, especially for the students who are working in the research projects for the first time. For the research scholars, it is not difficult, but for the students of BSc and MSc, it will be a little bit difficult. So, from this interactive session, you will be able to understand that, especially on the topic, but beside the topics, you can also understand that how to present the data, how to give the presentation in upcoming days. So this will be a very much helpful for the students, especially for the master degree and BSc and semester students. So I welcome all of you to this August gathering, and especially Ms. Radhika Morel for traveling a long way from USA and giving consent to attend this, to deliver this talk for our students. So I welcome all of you and Ms. Radhika Morel, all the faculty members. I wish that this interactive session will be valuable, and I request all the scholars and the students to ask the questions if there is any doubt, and hopefully I am very much hopeful for the enlightening session ahead. Thank you.
The honor and privilege of having Professor Dr. Sheila Bora Madam amongst us. I now request ma'am to kindly do us the honor of addressing the gathering present here.
Dr. Dharmeshwar Barohi, Dr. Annu Kumari, faculty members from English, I see Stuti and others, and Professor Mipun. Oh, nice to see you here. So I'm extremely, and the students, most welcome to all of you. Actually, I'm extremely grateful to the Department of Zoology for having arranged this talk today to be delivered by Radhika Moral. And I have seen how hard Dr. Barohi and Dr. Annu Kumari have worked to get this going. Actually, today, Radhika Moral has already been introduced by Dr. Barohi, but I must tell you that she's working on a subject which is very, very interesting, cutting across disciplines. All of you must be knowing what Muga is for Assam. Do you know what the Muga silk means for Assam? Do you understand what is Muga silk? All of you must be knowing what is Muga. Yes? It is the pride of Assam. This worm is only available in Assam and nowhere else. And it was once, priceless. But now, unfortunately, the Muga silk is gradually disappearing for various reasons. And even in areas where, the Muga trees used to be grown, those areas, the people are giving up growing the Muga plants, so the worms are not growing. And because of that, we find that the Muga textile is slowly disappearing, and we get all sorts of mixed, no pure Muga is not available. Even an ordinary Muga pair of mekhla chador will cost nothing less than 40,000 rupees now, which is not affordable for us. Now, there are various reasons why we are losing the Muga silk from Assam. And that is what I think, if I'm not mistaken, Radhika is investigating. How people live on the plantations, how the workers on the plantations are treated, what sort of benefit are these planters getting from the Muga industry? As the Muga silk is growing into an industry, are the workers benefiting? Or are someone else benefiting from this industry? So these are very interesting questions. Is it now sustainable? Or are we going to lose this Muga silk totally? It is a very, very important question, and I thought it would be very pertinent for students, because some of you are going to become, not all of you are going in for jobs, some of you are going to become entrepreneurs, and I'm sure some of you might like to think of the textile industry at some point of time. And it would be very interesting if you listen to her carefully. I'm sure many of us will have many questions. And I read somewhere that she's also going to talk about the women laborers who work on this industry, how they are being treated, and what is their prospect. Are they getting any advantage of working on this, or why are they leaving this profession and going somewhere else? So with this, I hope all of you listen attentively and have a lot of questions for Radhika. She's here to answer us. She will tell us, and it is very interesting that she's in Brown University working on this subject, right? It is something for us to take advantage of. And I hope all of you will have questions for her. I welcome Radhika. Thank you very much for sparing this time for us, and I'm sure our students will gain a great deal from listening to you. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for your insightful address. Moving forward, as we embark on our exploration of the intricate world of anthropology, it is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed speaker, Ms. Radhika Moral. Hailing from the distinguished Department of Anthropology at Brown University in Rhode Island, USA, Ms. Moral is a doctoral scholar whose research focuses on the complex dynamics of silk production in Upper Assam, India. Ms. Moral's work, supported by prestigious institutions such as the Center for Contemporary South Asia and the Watson Institute for International and Public Affairs, delves into the influence of seasonality and labor practices on Muga silk, intricately woven into agricultural activities. Prior to pursuing her doctoral studies, she conducted research on cross-border migrations in the Thai-Burmese borderland, shedding light on the life of Rohingya communities. With a background in social justice research, Ms. Moral brings a unique perspective to her anthropological inquiry addressing issues of immigration and gender justice. Please join me in extending a warm welcome to Ms. Radhika Moral as she shares her profound insights and discoveries from the intersection of academia and societal change. I now have the honor of inviting Ms. Moral to join us on stage, and I kindly ask Ms. Sangeeta Biswas, Assistant Professor, Department of Geology, to present a gesture of honor to our esteemed guest today. Without further ado, I request Ms. Moral to begin her deliberation.
Sheila Bora ma'am for facilitating this, and to Dr. Anukumari from the Department of Zoology, who's been in constant touch with me over the last couple of weeks, trying to figure out logistics for the talk. So thank you so much. I've just finished concluded fieldwork. I've conducted over 2 years of ethnographic and archival fieldwork in Assam and across Northeast India. But the talk, I want to say that I've taken the liberty to play around with the structure of the talk. I will begin with spending a little bit of time talking about why social scientists should and must study climate change. I'll spend a couple of minutes on that, and then I will locate Northeast India as an important location to study climate change from and at, and then I will eventually conclude with what my work is about and how it is, where I place my work in the larger global conversation on climate change. And then at the end, I might miss many dimensions that might interest a lot of you, so I'm open to taking questions, comments, remarks at the end. I really hope you have a lot of questions for me. I may not be able to answer all of them, but I'll do my best, and I look forward to an interactive session. I begin the talk today primarily something I consider to be the beginning of an important conversation for both researchers in social sciences and the sciences. Climate change has been one such area of study that has invited interest and sustained intellectual and empirically grounded research and inquiries across disciplines. And I speak to you today in the capacity of an environmental anthropologist primarily, and that's really my expertise. An anthropologist, as well as maybe a sociologist, a historian, people in the social sciences, study climate change to ask a very specific set of questions that are much beyond broad macro level questions about at what temperature does the Earth's surface get heated up for it to be counted as climate change. Social scientists primarily are interested in asking what forms of scientific expertise are employed to determine that climate change is taking place, which is to say, how do we know that climate change is happening? On a day-to-day basis, do we feel on our skin and in our bodies that climate change is real? How is the science of climate change culturally and politically mediated? Who participates in the production of knowledge about global climate change, and how does this participation shape the reception of the findings by diverse groups scattered across the world? How is ignorance as well as knowledge about climate change constructed and circulated? So we are living in what we call the Anthropocene. Many of you might have heard that word. What the word Anthropocene, so where it comes from is in the 1980s, an ecologist by the name of Eugene Stormer coined this word, and later on was popularized by a Nobel laureate by the name of Paul Crutzen, who proposed Anthropocene as the name for a new geological age defined by overwhelming human activity and human influence upon the earth. In fact, Anthropocene epoch today is the unofficial unit of geological time and now is used to describe the most recent period in Earth's history that has significantly impacted our planet's climate and ecosystems. Lastly, before I conclude, just a couple of things I want to note about Muga silkworms. and the silkworms in themselves. So the silkworms as a non-human are very, very central in playing the role of a mediator of making a very harsh landscape habitable for farmers. The plantation itself as a place of relations thus becomes a site not just of, humans and non-humans meeting, but also a space of motion and relations forged by a multitude of different beings, conditions, and processes. The plantation is thus at once a site of austere production, hard labor, but also a site of rest, waiting, and crucially, rituals that bind the seasons and processes of production by one seamless thread. So because there is such a sense of reverence towards Muga, a lot of people in Upper Assam you'll see who have plantations, at the beginning of each harvest cycle, they have a set of rituals where they're paying respects to the goddess of the plantation, right? So these rituals are very, very crucial to understand the non-quantifiable processes of climate change, where there is a constant ongoing interaction between the divine and the daily, where rituals are a necessary part of this human silkworm dynamic, where a lot of these people, and they've told me themselves, that we live with them like they are our children, and they're referring to the silkworms, the kind of care that goes in, and so it is a very painful process in the end when they see so many silkworms have died or have been diseased. So in some sense, as I conclude, plantations, farmlands, agricultural fields can be called terrains of relatedness, as has been termed by another anthropologist whose name is Radhika Govindarajan, where she says it is an acknowledgement that one is not formed as a self in isolation, but through the doing and performing of relations, both desirable and undesirable, a relatedness with the non-human world that help maintain communities and the conservation of culturally and environmentally relational identities that are never static. So I'll end here, but I'm happy to take questions and comments and, anything else. Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, I have a question. What are the key factors which are leading to the agrarian transformation in the silk industry in this region?
There are factors. I mean, some of the main ones are that because, and this is actually something that I didn't mention, and thanks for the question. So because being on a silkworm plantation involves so much waiting, because once the worms have been put on the tree, they'll take about at least between 20 to 25 days to eat and become, of a certain size, right? After which they can move on to the next stage of reeling. So in that period of about 2 to 3.5 weeks, a lot of rearers and silk farmers have a lot of, like I said, they have a lot of time where they're just waiting on these plantations. And because these plantations are contiguous or right adjacent to agricultural fields like potatoes, rice, mustard, people are constantly moving between the two places, which is why in Dokwakhana at least, earlier it used to be largely rice producing, but now they have gone on to mustard, more frequently potatoes, other seasonal cash crops. So in that sense, because of the how do I say this? Because of the labor plantation dynamic on a Muga plantation, on a Muga farm, because of, again, seasonality, because each season requires different amount of labor, people don't have the time to just wait in one place, right? Because it is also a question of survival. It is also a question of, making ends meet. So in that sense, while it has also doubled and multiplied women's labor typically women's labor because women conduct more day-to-day work than men in these places. Somehow these arrangements between the lack of any distance between a silkworm plantation and a rice plantation or a rice farm, they're not plantations, allows for a movement of labor. Right, so it is a shared labor that has led to large-scale agricultural transformations. And just to be very clear, agrarian transformation doesn't necessarily mean like growth, right? It also has a lot of issues that come with it, right? Like people paying huge taxes on land that they are leasing out from someone, right? People not having enough money to pay loans that they have taken from self-help groups, right? So agrarian transformation doesn't signal necessarily just progress, but a kind of shifting relations, agrarian relations that have existed for a while in these places. And this is not unique to just Assam. This is something you can see in Latin America. This is something you can see in the US. This is something you can see in sub-Saharan Africa, that because of climate change, agricultural models have transformed. Right? Not always for the better, but they're constantly kind of reshaping one another. In this case, this site is quite useful because you have two very significant components of agrarian Assam: silk, like a cottage industry, and a small-scale, agrarian industry. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Of heat stress on silkworm health and silk production quality.
Heat stress. So there are two things, right? On the one hand, a typical kind of like a good temperature for Muga silkworms to give its best quality of thread is somewhere between 21 to 23, 24 degrees Celsius. But we are far from that in Assam now, right? We've already gone up to like 36 in April, right? So what is happening in the process is these worms cannot climb higher up onto the trees because the leaves with the most amount of nutrients actually stay at the top. Because they're not able to make their way up to the top because of heat, they're dropping, or certain proteins have become sort of scant in their body. So on a species level, also because of fungal and protozoan diseases and whatnot, I'm not a scientific expert, so I don't know those, but I do know that like their mobilities have reduced and they drop from the trees very easily. They don't go to waste. Of course, they are still, I've seen, in Upper Assam now you have artificially climate controlled rooms where Muga silkworms are being, stored. But there's a huge difference in the final product. And that is something that rearers really struggle with. Because it does not fetch the price at which they are auctioning. So there was a picture that I showed you of, there are these silk bazaars where they auction off their silkworms, right? And so, so on the level of like the species, protein, there are these issues. And it also extends, it increases the labor of, the people, because every time the worms drop, they actually have to go and look for the worms and put them back on the tree. And it's only a matter of time that the process repeats itself. So these are some sort of more, these are more kind of like everyday experiential effects of heat. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, ma'am.
About that, we have with the Eddie silkworms, within which we have nurtured them actually inside of a cardboard box. But many of the silkworm died because of maybe of the temperature difference with the environment, and inside the box it's different, right? So I just want a suggestion from you that how would you nurture like artificially a silkworm because most of them died. Do you have any suggestion about it?
I mean, that's precisely the point of my work, which is the reason that these solutions are not there, or the reason that these solutions are not documented well enough, practiced, is because there is a great deal of hesitance from local traditional knowledge of silkworm rearing, which is obviously very invaluable. Machines or any kind of technological advancement cannot replicate that knowledge. But there is also a great deal of technical know-how around, for example, how do you make this, because of these changes in the climate and thereby changes in the product. Over the years, the Muga silk quality has become more rough. So there are now very interesting ways of smoothening and softening Muga silk, right? And these are patented processes. So there is a great deal of technical know-how to really scale up, right? But on your question is more about, like, on a very fundamental level, like, how do you even prevent them from dying? Because if they die, then there's no silk, right? So I think it is a question of really, like, thinking about plantation like mechanisms, forest laws, protection for some trees. In my knowledge, I have not seen any. I've done a fair amount of archival work. Some of these things have not been updated, right? There is less kind of, and not just like that. Even if there has been a great deal of attempts from, like, the Central Silk Board scientists who want to work with farmers and bring combined knowledge, but farmers are scared, and rightly so, because they have been, they have been fooled, they've lost, money, it's a hard life. So I think the solutions are getting stalled because of the inability, or like the absence of, like, a dialogue or on a policy level between traditional knowledge systems, that is possessed by the agrarian communities, and technical know-how, technocrats, experts, scientists. But one thing that I did see was they use a lot of, I think, for a cooling effect, like, I did notice the use of alkaline, like khar. They would keep these worms soaked in them for hours. The use of tobacco leaves, the use of banana leaves, something called a herua pat, which is also a mixed evergreen. But these are natural and traditional ways, right? Sometimes they're not enough. Given the kind of temperatures we live in, traditional systems have not worked as well to maintain a scaling up model. So because of these reasons, it has remained on the level of the cottage industry, right? So thanks for the question.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
We all know that 6 different seasons of Muga cultivation. You have also mentioned out of these, Jethua and Kotia is considered better, and Kotia may be the best one. I just want to know that weavers when they produce a piece of Muga cloth, mekhla chador or sari, do they consider to take the thread from one particular season, or it is a mixed one?
Maybe around 120 to 130 weavers. Not all Muga, but predominantly Muga, because my work is on Muga. A lot of them actually prefer Eherua, which is again interesting because that is not a commercial seed crop. The commercial seed crop is Jethua and Kotia. They prefer Eherua because Eherua, it's supposed to kind of it's supposed to be the Muga that has the most amount of the golden shine. Okay. And that is something that, again, these are knowledge that are probably just limited to one tiny village or a cluster of families. I know this because I went to talk to them. I would have never known otherwise. So it's quite interesting. Kotia is the most kind of used and most preferred. But I think what is happening with Kotia and Jethua is that they are being, because of low production, they are being mixed with toss Muga. And not just toss Muga, but sometimes also Eri. Okay. So there is a lot of mixing. Right?
Mixing is there, right. And weaver, they disclose also that this is 50-50 Muga.
They
but
do.
No, when do they consider this? There one particular particular thread from one harvest only they will be using in producing one pair of mekla chadar, or it's a mixed one?
It's a mixed one because also,
Okay.
but also because of changing weather, right? Because historically they have always preferred Kotia. Kotia was the largest. Even I've also done fieldwork in Soigaon and Boko. Those areas have largely preferred Kotia over Jethua. But over the years in Lokhimpur, Majuli, Jorhat, these places, Shibohagar, weavers have said that now we can't predict anymore. Now sometimes Eherua is better, sometimes Bhodia is better. So seasonality itself has become so erratic and it has become so unstable, which is why I said that sometimes, as a joke, they say that, hey, ohabar kopal bhal hole bhal hobo aru. And they said, but it is not just about kopal bhal. There are actually scientific reasons as to why we are seeing that they can no longer, confidently say that this is the best type of muga. But thank you for that question. It's a really important question. Yeah.
Radhika, like that case, some plantation is no more possible for its cultivation. Then I wonder that what will be the second option for this muga silk, whether they will be able to cultivate in another plants?
Will be, if muga still is considered valuable, which I think it will be, stakeholders will have to look for colder places, colder, more climatically conducive regions, which will mean that the geographical indication will no longer work. Because if you are only to make it in Assam, will not have necessarily, the most conducive setup for muga plantation. Khasi Hills, foothills of the Khasi Hills, foothills of Naga Hills, Garo Hills, where, a lot of the seed crop actually comes from, are extremely habitable sites. With the right kind of temperature that is needed. Boko and all of that, these areas have actually seen much better muga crop yield than say Dhokwakhana last year. There might come a time where, geographically you cannot be fixated to one site. And that will mean a lot of other things, legally, politically, so... But I can only guess.
Okay, one more question. I heard that only veg is allowed in the cultivation areas. Veg foods are allowed.
In only what?
In cultivation areas, people used to take only veg foods.
Veg food?
Yes.
Okay.
Non-veg is not allowed. I heard. I don't know it is correct or not, but from somewhere I heard. So is there any scientific reason, or this is just a belief?
I haven't heard of this, so I don't know. Where I have spent my time, there's all kinds of food, fermented, otherwise, all kinds of meat, pork mostly in Upper Assam has been consumed, and it hasn't necessarily been a source of challenge. What has been, though, is a lot of people discard like plastic and glass onto the plantations, and there is no proper mechanism for garbage disposal, which is also a problem of infrastructural failure on plantations, right? Sanitation and garbage disposal is a huge problem. And these are like state-owned 300, 400 hectares of land under plantation. So those are issues. I don't think food is as such.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Ma'am, due to this silkworm cultivation, are there any kind of ecological shifts that occurred, or has it affected the biodiversity of Assam?
Like I said, dying, the 2.3 million tree cover loss is a direct kind of repercussion of maintenance heavy tree, right? It can sort of grow anywhere in that sense. That's not true anymore because of extreme levels of soil toxicity. Right, so the biodiversity in that sense, it's a whole cycle, because the trees won't survive, because the leaves won't have enough nutrients, the worms won't have enough nutrients, therefore will not produce the adequate protein. So in that sense, it's a whole kind of like a network of biodiversity loss, right? And that is what sort of needs to be mitigated and thought about.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
To think of it, I mean, that we just have to say, okay, there'll be a time there'll be no more sum trees, and somebody has already told you that by 46, Muga worms will disappear.
Yeah, and I mean
huge areas.
No, that is something that could be accommodated. But then, where is the question?
Where is the problem?
question? Forest enclosures, those patterns have changed. So it's a very sad, but there's a lot of promise. I think there is still a lot of hope. These people are, it's quite fascinating. Like they're so resilient and hopeful that it'll be that every season is going to be better. So I think there is something there, that there is a certain resilience that they have.
But how long will that continue?
True.
Isn't it?
That's true.
Once they see it's not happening already, I think the cultivation has become much less, and the engagement of people with the Muga silk is becoming much less.
Yeah.
So Muga silk is becoming more of a big industry now.
Yes. Yeah.
Controlled by certain people, and it's no longer, agrarian industry or rural.
Yeah,
It's
that's a valid
very
point.
sad.
Yeah.
Thesis.
I hope so. I'm going to take the next 1 year to come up with suggestions, directions, and that is the real truth, actually. So. But yeah, well, hopefully there will be some remedy to this. Yes, I've done because my work was mostly with the Sumoni and the plantation, but I've worked with in Dhokwakhana I worked with the block office and the state agriculture department, but with CSB, I've done a couple of interviews, workshops, and I've been in touch. And they also agree. They also agree that we are also helpless because our technical knowledge is not received by farmers on the ground because they're suspicious, and for the right reasons. Right, because they have been exploited for decades. So there is that kind of tension that is really making it difficult for knowledge to be shared, where solutions might emerge. So yeah. All right. Okay. Thank you so much for your patience and your great questions. Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. Your insightful deliberation has left us feeling enriched and inspired as we deeply appreciate the depth of knowledge and thoughtful analysis you have shared with us. Thank you for sharing your time, knowledge, and experiences with us, ma'am. Now, to conclude the session, I request Dr. Anu Kumari, Assistant Professor and Event Coordinator, Department of Geology, to kindly deliver the vote of thanks.
A very good afternoon to one and all. On behalf of the Zoology Department of the Assam Royal Global University, I, Dr. Anu Kumari, as Assistant Coordinator, extend sincere gratitude to each of you for honoring us with your presence and contributing to the success of this interactive session. We begin by expressing our gratitude to the Assam Royal Global University for generously providing us with the platform to host this talk featuring a skilled doctoral researcher, Ms. Radhika Moral from Brown University, USA. Our heartfelt appreciation goes to our Professor Nikhil Kumar Churungu sir, the esteemed Dean of the Royal School of Life Sciences, for his priceless support. And although sir couldn't be present here today due to some prior academic commitments, we are grateful to him. Special thanks to Professor Sheila Bora Madam, the esteemed Professor and Vice of the Royal School of Humanities and Social Science, for her unwavering support and guidance in organizing this event. Once again, thank you, Madam, for your valuable suggestions and for taking the time to assist us whenever we reached out to you, and your commitment to supporting emerging scholars is truly commendable. I kindly request everyone to give Professor Bora a hearty round of applause for for bringing forth the idea that led to such an engaging discussion. Thank you, Madam. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest, Ms. Radhika Moral, for sharing her invaluable insights on the topic, Living on a Silk Plantation, Seasonality, Agrarian Transformation, and Ecological Shift in Northeast India. The way she have answered or addressed the queries was really adorable. Thank you so much for being with us. Moving ahead, I would now like to extend our heartfelt gratitude to all the faculty members from various departments who are present here. Mipun sir, as I can see here, thank you all of you for being with us and making this event a successful one. A special mention to all my colleagues from the Department of Zoology for their invaluable contribution as members of the organizing committee, as well as to the head of our department, Dr. Dharmeshwar Barohoi, whose assistance has been indispensable in managing this successful session. Our sincere appreciation to the enthusiastic students whose energy and passions have contributed to the success of this event, and a special thanks to the volunteers of the Zoology department. Thanks to all the students from various departments who participated actively in this interactive session. We extend our sincere appreciation to the IT department for their hard work and dedication in ensuring the smooth conduct of this event. Once again, thank you one and all.